Welcome to our discussion for today, digital learning, how to use videos to enhance your teaching practices within your classroom. Our main focus today is what is a flipped classroom. It is not the gymnastics style that maybe you would find so intimidating. Rather, it's the act of flipping the responsibility for learning and teaching with your students. For instance, moving away from our direct instruction model that we're all so familiar with, in which kids rely solely on the teacher for information with the hopes that after they learn it, they then apply it, with a model where kids can watch the content of the lesson on their phone or tablet or computer in the form of a video, thus giving us our extra valuable class time not to communicate content, but for kids to practice and apply and learn from each other in a completely engaging environment. Essentially, when we talk about flipping our classrooms, we're talking about doubling our instructional time. Kids are getting the content, but it doesn't have to be from the teacher. It's from a video, and then they work with each other collaboratively to apply it, explore it, and enrich it. Sounds great, right? What teacher does not want to double her instructional time? But let's look at the effectiveness before we get too deep into this. We're going to discuss two areas in which we can judge the effectiveness of a flipped classroom. The first one is student engagement. According to a study by Common Sense Media, the average teenager spends 9 hours a day in front of his or her device. It doesn't take an expert to know that kids like their phones just like their parents and other adults in their lives do. If we can harness that 9-hour-a-day period to not just have it be focused on Facebook or Instagram or Tumblr or Twitter, that could be really powerful educationally. So the flipped classroom already has the embedded student engagement of it being done on a device, which we know that our kids are already super interested in. Another good way to gauge whether students are engaged in this strategy or not is by looking at how they report after being taught in a flipped classroom versus a traditional lecture-based classroom. In study after study, kids reported being far more engaged by videos that their teacher created, being able to hear their teacher's voice, commentary, maybe even jokes, far more than whatever they read in their textbooks, or even what they heard in class directly from their teacher. What explains this? I'm not sure. However, we know that kids like watching videos. They watch them all the time, and they're engaged with them even when they're about a topic in class. But let's not forget to look at the other way we can judge effectiveness. Of course, that is student mastery. In multiple studies that compared a flipped classroom to a traditionally taught classroom with a lot of direct instruction, each study found that active learning increased during actual class time in the flipped classrooms. Additionally, in classes that were taught in both ways, generally, the scores on quizzes were much higher or equal to a traditional classroom. So what we can see here is just not having a teacher teach something in a class doesn't mean that we're losing mastery. In many ways, we're gaining increases in student mastery. So what's not to like about flipping the classroom, right? It sounds perfect. Except, of course, that just like any other learning strategy, there are some limitations. The first and foremost, of course, is teacher reluctance. Whether that reluctance comes from fear or intimidation with technology, perhaps out of being overwhelmed by all the very many apps like Explain Everything, which I used to make this video, Educreations, Edpuzzle, and literally thousands of more at their disposal. Maybe that's too many to process. Or maybe teachers are reluctant because they have a lack of access to reliable technology that they can count on to work all the time and not just occasionally, or even because they have a lack of training in the technology that their district provides. There are lots of really good reasons for a teacher to be scared of flipping his or her classroom. We'll talk in a second about ways administrators can help those teachers overcome their reluctance to flip. Another reason teachers might be reluctant to flip their classrooms is that they just don't believe that it works as well as many studies point out that it does. Many of us who have been in education for a while never learned via video. Videos were something teachers put on when they didn't feel like teaching. But now we know that videos can be really powerful instructional tools. And the Department of Education recently released a study saying that yes, direct instruction can be effective, and yes, videos can be effective. But actually, like almost anything else, the most effective form of teaching is blended instruction. So a little bit of direct, a little bit of videos. So teachers might be reluctant because they don't know what's going to be best for their kids, and they know what they've been doing for years and years can be effective. We can help support them by telling them how to make it even more effective through the employment of their traditional instruction as well as videos. So if we already know that flipping the classroom can be an extremely effective instructional tool, let's talk about how administrators can support their teachers in integrating this tool into their classrooms. There are three main ways that an administrator can support his or her teachers in making these changes. The first is simply by providing his or her teachers with the technology they'd like to see employed. Technology is a major investment for a district and should be considered carefully, but teachers can't be expected to employ anything without the thoughtful and appropriate providing of materials by administration. The second thing that goes right along with that is providing training for staff. Sometimes we think that things like iPads are so completely intuitive that we don't need to train on it. But the truth is, especially for some of our more seasoned teachers, these tools do not come easily. And if we want them to use them meaningfully, we need to give them meaningful training that's relevant not only to the age level of their students, but the discipline that they teach. Based on the studies that we see, I would recommend finding a tech coach to help teachers employ technology effectively in their classrooms, and also surveying teachers to find out what training, what professional development is meaningful to them. The third way an administrator can support his or her teachers in incorporating the use of more technology in their digital learning plan is the simple but ever important gift of time. Learning how to use technology effectively in a classroom requires playing, it requires experimentation, and administrators need to give their staff members time to figure out how to use it effectively in their classrooms, and also the time to make mistakes and fix those mistakes. Appreciate that there is a learning curve here for many teachers. One last recommendation before we go about other uses for video if you think that your classroom isn't quite ready for the full flip, or if you think that your teachers aren't ready to consider fully integrating technology into their classrooms. Videos have a number of other super effective uses. Let's remember that videos can be super effective for students who miss a lot of school, providing absent work for students, students who might be homebound, students who might be on a medical leave. By videotaping lessons, by providing those videos to your students, you can really make sure that their learning continues despite whatever unpleasantness has caused their absence. You can also use videos to support your students with special needs. I personally have had a lot of students who need to hear information repeated multiple times, or they need to slow it down. They might have trouble concentrating in a class. By providing them with the same content on a video, they can rewind, play it again, slow it down, take a minute, and that's been really effective. Finally, not just for our students with special needs, we can differentiate instruction for our gifted and talented as well. Videos can be enriching. Maybe they find out more information about a topic. Additionally, maybe it takes the instruction in a different direction for our kids who are already mastering the material. Videos provide an innumerable amount of resources and advantages to our students. We know that they're already engaged. We know that they like to do work on their phones. Why don't we harness that power and use it to promote even more effective instruction? Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video on digital learning and how to employ the flipped classroom in your classroom. Please let me know if you have any questions on the flipped classroom topic. I'm eager to talk it out by emailing me at karen.kruger@chsd218.org. Happy flipping!